Yeah. We got a great and wonderful show starting in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. If you're on the podcast, go ahead and fast forward. If you're listening and watching live, I see the people piling in. This is going to be a good show. We're going to talk about Pete Hegseth and his speech at Quantico to all of the generals that just happened to be, I don't even know, it was like amazing. It's like the timeline of the universe is finally back on track, and it went out and took this big long curve into insanity and wokeness and weakness in our military, and now what we have is strength and honor and courage and commitment back. But don't go anywhere. Hang on. Minute 30 seconds. Doot. Hello, Patriots. Welcome back to the show. We took a couple of days off, and I think that was pretty good because now we get to regroup here. But there's a subject I've been wanting to cover since I was back on a few days ago, and I'm glad that I now finally get to cover it. We're going to talk about Pete Hegseth and the meeting he had with all of the generals in Quantico about what is the path that our country is on, the new path that our Secretary of War is on, and that name is super important, and I will explain why. He said a lot of key things in this 45-minute speech that indicate something huge is on the way, and I may know what it is, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hey, Ryan. Hi, this is Sarah Palin.
Ryan, Donald Trump Jr.
Harsh to NC. Hey, everybody, I want y'all to check out a fellow Marines podcast.
My name is Ted Nugent, and I got a call from my buddy Ryan F. Samuels, and he wants me to tell you that he's a working hard, playing all-American son of a who is celebrating God, family, country.
Welcome to the Ryan Samuels Show, one of the top political podcasts in the United States, where we have a healthy distrust for government and mainstream media. The Ryan Samuels Show is a raw, unfiltered look at American politics. Follow on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Rumble, and all podcast platforms. Here is your host, Ryan Samuels.
All right. So Pete Hegseth gathers every general in the United States military, right? Generals, admirals, whatever, the high-ranking officials, all of the brass, as we used to say when I was in the Marine Corps. And he gave a speech that I thought was absolutely incredible and amazing. Now, obviously, we only have an hour here. We're going to cover as much of it as we can. The speech was 45 minutes. I can't do everything, the whole thing. I got a bunch of clips we're going to go over, and we are going to discuss. Here is, let's look at this first one here. So first thing to take notice is, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Patton, where he comes out and he gives this speech about how they're going to kill the enemy and use their guts to lubricate the tracks of their tanks. Well, Patton was standing in front of a giant American flag. Pete Hegseth is an Army veteran. He was a platoon commander, which means that he was an officer, Harvard grad, definitely qualified for the job that he's doing, regardless of what the Democrats say. But he's standing in front of a giant American flag, which is almost like a tribute to General Patton as he was giving a speech to all of his troops. So we just got a bunch of clips. They're not in any particular order. I did watch this speech, the entire speech. It was incredible. Let's get it started with this first one.
To remove the social justice, politically correct, and toxic ideological garbage that had infected our department. To rip out the politics. No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses.
The biggest point of this entire speech is, I will say this, is that we're not politicians, right? In the military, we are not politicians. What we are is we're war fighters, and we're here to kill the enemy in the name of our country and our countrymen. That's it. Period. We're going to overwhelm the enemy with surprise, speed, and violence of action. That's basically what Hegseth is saying here. Is that we're not dealing with dudes in dresses. He talks about women in combat, which I happen to strongly agree with Pete Hegseth on this issue, and many other things. But that's the main gist of it.
No more climate change worship. No more division, distraction, or gender delusions. No more debris. As I've said before, and will say again, we are done with that shit. I've made it my mission to uproot the obvious distractions that made us less capable and less lethal. That said, the War Department requires the next step. Underneath the woke garbage is a deeper problem, and a more important problem that we are fixing and fixing fast. To remove...
There's really nothing in this entire thing that I watched earlier today that I disagree with. I think if have gender dysphoria, you have a mental disorder, and you don't belong in the United States military. There's no role in combat roles for somebody like that. Okay, period. End of discussion. Nothing to say here about the gender dysphoria. Let's look at this other clip.
Precision and ferocity of the War Department. In other words, to our enemies, F-A-F-O. If necessary, our troops can translate that for you. Another way to put it is peace through strength, brought to you by the warrior ethos. And we are restoring both.
Basically, now, there was a lot of speculation about this. There was a ton of speculation about this this speech about him getting all of the generals together. Like, what are they doing? Like, nobody ever does that, right? I don't think any Secretary of Defense in quite a long time has gotten every general in one room and had a conversation. I think that it's a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing, but I think it leaves people unsettled. Like, what are they doing? Are we getting ready? And then, you change the name of the Secretary of Defense to the Secretary of War, or for the Department of Defense to the Department of War. And I'll tell you the reason for doing that is that it's a mentality change for the whole military, right? We're not here as a defense force. We're here for war. And we're going to win war. We're not here to defend our country. We're here to go to war. And that changes everything. When you say defense, it's almost as if sometimes people sit around and they get a little bit complacent and they go, well, the thought is, yeah, we're a defense force. So in the event that's in the unlikely event that something should happen, we're ready to defend our country. But a lot of times, yeah, you could say it's defense, but sometimes it's not defense. Sometimes we're on the offense. Sometimes we're invading countries and not defending the United States. We're defending the United States' interest, but it doesn't mean that our country is in inherent risk most of the time with war. Anyway, at least since World War II, we really haven't had a valid reason for war. But Pete Hegseth is a warrior. If you ever read his book or understand his mindset, he's one of the bros in the military that we all share the same kind of mindset. Like, we want the hard training. We want the vicious brutality of training, and we want to be able to do our job uninhibited by politicians in Washington, D.C. And he is definitely the right guy for this job, like without a doubt. I'm sure of that now after listening to this speech.
Because war does not care if you're a man or a woman. Neither does the enemy. Nor does the weight of your rucksack, the size of an artillery round, or the body weight of a casualty on the battlefield who must be carried.
So what he's talking about here is he's talking about women in combat. And what he's saying is that's fine, but you're going to be held to a male standard. You're not going to have special standards like if a man has to run 3 miles in 25 minutes, you have to run 3 miles in 25 minutes. Not 3 miles in 30 minutes simply because you're a woman or because you're at age 30 and not at age 22. He's basically eliminating all the DEI, easy lowering the bars because it's killing our military. And you're putting unqualified people in combat, which causes lives and loses the war of America's and America's interest. I don't think women belong in combat. I've been very open to that on this show, and I have my reasons. And one of the main reasons is the number one is the physical standards. The physical standards of our military are extremely high, and that doesn't mean there aren't other roles in the military for women to do. But I don't want a woman next to me. I'm 6'4", like 250 pounds. I don't want a woman throwing me over her shoulders and carrying me out because 99.9% of the women are not going to be able to do it, if not 100%. Right? Men and women are built differently. Yeah, there are women out there that have seriously high physical fitness standards. Great. If they want to sign up and do it, they can do it. But to lower the standard and put everybody else around you at risk is irresponsible. And it's stupid things like that why politicians have weakened our military.
Nor does the weight of your rucksack, the size of an artillery round, or the body weight of a casualty on the battlefield who must be carried. This, and I want to be very clear about this, this is not about preventing women from serving. We very much value the impact of female troops. Our female officers and NCOs are the absolute best in the world. But when it comes to any job that requires physical power to perform in combat, those physical standards must be high and gender neutral. If women can make it, excellent. If not, it is what it is. If that means no women qualify for some combat jobs, so be it. That is not the intent, but it could be the result, so be it. It will also mean that weak men won't qualify because we're not playing games. This is combat. This is life or death.
He's plainly said. Plainly said, it's combat. It's life or death. This is not some fairy tale political game that we are playing. Okay, our young men are going over to dangerous areas, and they need to be able to do their job, and their job is very physical in nature. And in order to get in that job, not all men make it. Laura says common sense, honestly. Yes, Laura, it is. Appreciate that comment. It is common sense, but we've lost this common sense somehow in our entire military. Our entire military, they've completely, like, ever since it was, I remember I was in the Marines from 2005 to 2010. And at the end of my enlistment, Barack Obama was trying to make it so that women could be in combat roles, because back then women could not be in combat, no matter what. You couldn't if you wanted to. And he had made that, and literally, like, all of the women were like, nah, screw this. That's not what I signed up for. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be part of that. Even when I went to college with another female Marine, and she literally wrote like one of her papers on why women don't belong in combat. It's a very different thing than it is for men to be in combat. But like Pete Hegseth said, if they can meet the physical requirement, then they can meet the physical requirement. But not all men can meet the physical requirement. So that's gonna be a tough. Hey Kate, how are you? Kat, sorry, welcome. That's gonna be a tough bridge to cross.
The male.
So this is a clip for Fox News. This caused like absolute outrage on the left. Let's hear what Fox News had to say.
The male standard.
But when it comes to any job that requires physical power to perform in combat, those physical standards must be high and gender neutral. If women can make it, excellent. If not, it is what it is.
Yeah, and I would assume that means that there are many men who will also not meet those standards. And Secretary Hegseth said there is nothing wrong with this kind of conversation that he wants to bring up now. Not even a conversation, a mandate that there has to be gender-neutral attire, that leadership must be apolitical. And he told this crowd here that hundreds all around the country and all the world, any military member who is 1 star and above, that if any of what he says cause their hearts to sink, that maybe they should consider resigning. Guys, we'll send it back to you.
Yeah. Sorry, but if you don't believe in the basics of, if you don't believe in the freaking basics of, we didn't get into everything he said, but basically he just wants to return the military back to normalcy. There's nothing wrong with anything that he said. He doesn't want fat people in our military. Like, yeah, no, hell no. I knew a couple of Marines that got out because they were fat. They got kicked out because they were fat with Marine Corps standards. And I'll tell you, if you were to look at them, you would be like, that's not fat at all. And they got kicked out. Let's watch this clip.
Speech today is about people, and it's about culture. The topic today is about the nature of ourselves. Because no plan, no program, no reform, no formation will ultimately succeed unless we have the right people and the right culture at the War Department. If I've learned one core lesson in my 8 months in this job, it's that personnel is policy. Personnel is policy. The best way to take care of troops is to give them good leaders committed to the warfighting culture of the department. Not perfect leaders, good leaders. Competent, qualified, professional, agile, aggressive, innovative, risk-taking, apolitical, faithful to their oath and to the Constitution.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good and important topic, is apolitical. You don't want hardcore like politicians in our military. That's not what they're there. Like political philosophy has no business in our military. The Constitution sure does, and I think that generals have the power if they think something is unconstitutional to not follow an unlawful order. But as far as, you know, supporting political theologies, and yeah, a lot of political rhetoric is theological in nature, where it's almost a religion to some people. But I don't think that any of that has any business in our frickin' military. It's irrelevant to the mission that they're doing. They are there to go to war with other countries and defend the United States of America against all enemies. Period. They're not politicians. They're not here to support gender-neutral bathrooms and try to win favor over Washington, D.C., which is what our generals have become.
Eugene Sledge, in his World War II memoir, wrote,
So, first of all, Eugene Sledge is the man, United States Marine, Guadalcanal, 1st Marine Division. His father was a doctor. Eugene Sledge had a heart murmur. His dad didn't want him to join. He joined anyway, killed a bunch of Japs. He was a big hunter before he went to Japan to kill a bunch of Japs. In World War II, came home, decided that hunting was just not for him, that it was definitely better to hunt humans, and hunting animals was just boring and wrong. Figure that one out. Awesome, badass guy. Wrote a memoir. Awesome memoir.
Eugene Sledge, in his World War II memoir, wrote, quote, "War is brutish, inglorious, and a terrible waste. Combat leaves an indelible mark on those who are forced to endure it. The only redeeming factors are my comrades' incredible bravery and their devotion to each other. In combat, there are thousands of variables, as I learned in Iraq and Afghanistan, and as so many of you did in so many more places. Leaders can only control about 3 of them. You control how well you're trained, mostly how well you're equipped, and the last variable is how well you lead. After that, you're on your own. Our warfighters are entitled to be led by the best and most capable leaders. That is who we need you all to be. Even then, in combat, even if you do everything right, you may still lose people because the enemy always gets a vote. We have a sacred duty to ensure that our warriors are led by the most capable and qualified combat leaders. This is one thing you and I can control, and we owe it to the force to deliver it."
Man, I wish I had this kind of leadership when I was in. I really do. I really do. You know, mine was a little bit lackluster for sure. They were more worried about, Marines killing the wrong people than they were, Marines getting the job done. So the ROIs, or the rules of engagement, were stupid. At one point, we had to wait until we were actually fired upon before we could fire back. We had to return fire, not initiate it. So if somebody's standing there pointing an AK-47 at you, you had to wait till they pulled the trigger. Make sense of that. I mean, it's freaking war, dude. I'm not waiting until you pull the trigger. Like, you're done. You can point that gun in my direction, or at least if I even think you're going to.
Today, at my direction, each service will ensure that every requirement for every combat MOS, for every designated combat arms position, returns to the highest male standard only. Because this job is life or death. Standards must be met. And not just met, at every level we should seek to exceed the standard, to push the envelope, to compete. It's common sense and core to who we are and what we do. It should be in our DNA. Today, at my direction, we are also adding a combat field test.
Yeah.
Combat arms units that must be executable in any environment at any time and with combat equipment. These tests, they'll look familiar. They'll resemble the Army Expert Physical Fitness Assessment or the Marine Corps Combat Fitness Test. I'm also directing that warfighters in combat jobs execute their service fitness test at a gender-neutral, age-normed male standard scored above 70%. It all starts with physical fitness and appearance.
And this is what true equality looks like, ladies and gentlemen. This is what it looks like. You got to hit the standard.
If the Secretary of War can do regular, hard PT, so can every member of our joint force. Frankly, it's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look. But today...
I love it. I love it. I love it, calling out fat generals and admirals. Michelle. Hey, Michelle. Welcome. Good to see you back. Yeah, I know who that was under. My husband was retired Air Force. Then we lived in base after retirement for a while. Yep, for sure. But yeah, no, dude, like you should not be fat and be in the military. That's not how it works.
In my direction, every member of the joint force at every rank is required to take a PT test twice a year, as well as meet height and weight requirements twice a year. Every year of service. Also today, at my direction, every warrior across our joint force is required to do PT every duty day.
Yes.
Common sense. I mean, most units do that already.
Yes. That's basic. So basically, he wants every unit to act like a combat unit. So combat units act that way. Like combat units, like infantry, Marines, infantry, Army guys, engineers, frontline troops, they act like that every day. They're every day they PT, every duty day they have to do some sort of PT. They have to meet all these height and weight standards. He wants to do that for the entire military. Whether you're pushing the chair, or you're a keyboard warrior, or a friggin' lawyer, or a doctor. Because there's a lot of people in the military, they just go to work like 9 to 5, and that's really it. And they do a physical fitness test once a year or twice a year, and that's really it. And they kind of just have a normal life, and they're not. It's almost like they're not even in the military. He wants to change that. I think that's a good thing. I think that's a really good thing.
Let's do that already, but we're codifying it. And we're not talking like hot yoga and stretching. Real hard PT, either as a unit or as an individual. At every level, from the Joint Chiefs to everyone in this room to the youngest private, leaders set the standard. And so many of you do this already. Active, Guard, and Reserve. This also means grooming standards. No more beards.
No more beards. We couldn't have beards when I was in. Could not have beards at all.
Long hair, superficial individual expression. We're going to cut our hair, shave our beards, and adhere to standards. We don't have a military full of Nordic pagans. But unfortunately, we have had leaders who either refuse to call BS and enforce standards, or leaders who felt like they were not allowed to enforce standards.
For sure.
Both are unacceptable. And that's why today, at my direction, the era of unprofessional appearance is over. No more beardos. The era of rampant and ridiculous shaving profiles is done.
Now, a shaving profile, if you don't know, is a waiver you get from your doctor. Now, that waiver could be religious. It could be because you get a rash if you shave. Like, here is a guy in our military. This is how he looks.
Wouldn't it be easier just to shave and put on a patrol cap? I mean, I guess it could be easier to shave, but actually it's more easier not to shave because I don't have to do it.
Look at this disgusting person. This is a disgrace to the military.
It could be.
He's like morbidly obese with this beard, and he's an NCO. He's a sergeant. Like, get out of here.
I mean, I guess it could be easier to shave, but actually it's more easier not to shave because I don't have to do it. The same thing with the patrol cap. I
Look at
hope
this.
You enjoy me braiding my beard up or twisting my beard up.
This drives
so I
me
can be
insane.
in regulations and be a proper example for those who do have a religious accommodation. Two inches. Blessings.
Just shave your damn face, dude. And, okay, so for the people who are going to friggin' freak out on me and say, why can't he have a beard? Why can't he have a beard? Okay, I'll tell you exactly why. Because if you're ever standing in an open field and they throw out, or you get gassed, right? Now you got to put your gas mask on. Well, guess what? You can't form a proper seal on your gas mask. So then you die, right? That's one of the reasons you can't have a beard. Because everybody's issued a gas mask. And yes, you can get gassed in the military if you're going somewhere. They gas you in training. They use CS gas. You'll be standing in a field. They'll just freaking throw out a CS grenade. And then all of a sudden you can't breathe. So you better get your gas mask on. It's training. You can't get a proper seal if you don't have, if you have a beard. Okay. Special ops guys have beards sometimes. And the reason they do that, because if you go into one of these villages in Afghanistan or Iraq or in Iran or some places around the world, they won't even consider you a man or even have a conversation with you. And sometimes they just need to talk to people and gain intelligence. And sometimes they do it for respect. And it's honestly just for bragging rights. They kind of earned it. If you're a tier 1 guy, tier 2 guy, then you kind of earn your right to have a beard. It's kind of the way that it goes.
Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon.
I love that.
And leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look. It is bad, and it's not who we are. So whether you're an airborne ranger or a chairborne ranger, a brand new private or a 4-star general, you need to meet the height and weight standards and pass your PT test.
Love it.
And as the chairman said, yes, there is no PT test. But today, at my direction, every member of the Joint Force at every rank is required to take a PT test twice a year, as well as meet height and weight requirements twice a year.
Yep.
Every year of service. Also today, at my direction, every warrior across our Joint Force is required to do PT every duty day. Should be common sense. I mean,
we just watched this in a different video.
Do that already, but we're codifying it. And we're not talking like hot yoga and stretching.
He wants you to do real hard PT. It's awesome. That's the military. That's why you join. And he said something else too, which I thought was awesome. He basically said, if you don't like it, quit. Resign. Don't be here. Don't be one of the generals in the military.
To our great republic, at great sacrifice to yourselves and to your families. But if the words I'm speaking today are making your heart sink, then you should do the honorable thing and resign. We would thank you for your service. But I suspect, I know, the overwhelming majority of you feel the opposite. These words make your hearts full. You love the War Department because you love what you do, the profession of arms. You are hereby liberated to be an apolitical, hard-charging, no-nonsense, constitutional leader that you joined the military to be. We need you locked in on the M. Not the D, the E, or the I. Not the DEI or the DIE of dime. By that I mean the M. Military, of the instruments of national power. We have entire departments.
So I have the question of, like, what is going on here? Is this just kind of like a Reagan rebuild the military, peace through strength? Or are they getting prepared for something? or are they gearing up for something? So there is a lot of information that the president, the secretary of defense, that all of these guys get that we will never know about. Like, you will never know half of the intelligence that the president of the United States get. He could have a piece of intelligence on his desks that basically says if we do not invade Russia by November 1st, they're going to launch a nuke. We're going to hit these nuclear sites. We're going to take out their entire nuclear arsenal. Then we're going to come in over the Ukrainian border. You're never going to know that. And it could be a plan that just never got anywhere. You're never going to know. You're never going to know if we're going to invade Venezuela, which every day increasingly it looks like we are, considering they just say we're in armed conflict. So are they gearing up for something? Or is this just we're done with the BS, guys? We're getting back to normal. Here is Pete Hegseth again talking about how we've promoted people for the wrong reasons. We promoted people because of the color of their skin, or because they're a woman, or because they're a tranny.
For too long, we've promoted too many uniformed leaders for the wrong reasons, based on their race, based on gender quotas, based on historic so-called firsts. We've pretended that combat arms and non-combat arms are the same thing. We've weeded out so-called toxic leaders under the guise of double-blind psychology assessments, promoting risk-averse, go-along-to-get-along conformists instead. You name it, the department did it. Foolish and reckless political leaders set the wrong compass heading, and we lost our way. We became the woke department, but not anymore. Right now, I'm looking out at a sea of Americans who made a choice when they were young men and young women to do something most Americans will not, to serve something greater than yourselves, to fight for God and country, for freedom and the Constitution. You made a choice to serve when others did not, and I commend you. You are truly the best of America. But this does not mean, and this goes for all of us, that our path to this auditorium on this day was a straight line, or that the conditions of the formations we lead are where we want them to be. You love your country, and we love this uniform, which is why we must do better. We just have to be honest.
I love it.
We have to say with our mouths what we see with our eyes, to just tell it like it is in plain English, to point out the obvious things right in front of us. That's what leaders must do. We cannot go another day without directly addressing the plank in our own eye, without addressing the problems in our own commands and in our own formations. This administration has done a great deal from day one to remove the social justice, politically correct, and toxic ideological garbage that had infected our department, to rip out the politics.
Yes.
No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses. No more climate change worship. No more division, distraction, or gender delusions. No more debris. As I've said before, and will say again.
Yeah, dude, we're just here to kill the enemy. That's it. We're here to just kill the freaking enemy. Here is a clip from CNN. This is retired U.S. Army Major General Mark McClary discussing Pete Hegseth's speech to the top military officers. I have not watched this. Let's listen. Let's see what he has to say.
The other big story I'm watching for you out of Washington, just outside of Washington, actually. President Trump has told U.S. top military officers that U.S. cities could serve as training grounds for their troops. The president was speaking to hundreds of generals and admirals who'd been summoned to a base in Virginia.
Yeah, so President Trump gave a speech after this, after Pete Hegseth, that we didn't get to yet, but we're going to get there. But here's CNN reporting on it.
The president reiterated plans to send National Guard to Chicago. It followed an emphatic speech by the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth.
This administration has done a great deal from day one to remove the social justice, politically correct, and toxic ideological garbage
Yes.
that had infected our department, to rip out the politics. No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses.
I could listen
no
to
more
it
climate change worship.
over and over.
No more division, distraction, or gender delusions. No more debris. As I've said before, and will say again, we are done with that.
Well, fruity language, not the sort of language that one often hears amongst the heather, as they say. Major General Mark McCarley is with me. The generals sat there in silence. First of all, most of them possibly were half asleep because they were jet-lagged from coming from other parts of the world. What was this all about?
Well, the best thing I can say, Richard, and on its face, you could consider it an opportunity to inspire and an opportunity on the part of the Secretary of War to motivate. I will say that during all my career as a general officer, I never had an opportunity to come that close to the President of the United States. So for those who have traveled at great cost to our nation, they did have the one instance perhaps in their entire careers, not maybe the four-star admirals and generals, but certainly those of us who, as generals, were at a lower position, they can meet the senior leadership of the Department of War and of the United States of America.
When he says, the Defense Secretary, when he says the diversity is a weakness,
Yes.
we could arguably say one way or t'other it's gone too far, one thing or another. But is the general view amongst the upper echelons, is that a prevalent view, that diversity amongst the ranks all the way up is a weakness? Not so much, never mind how it might have been gone wrong in recent years, the
No, but that's a poor question.
core concept of diversity.
No, your question is a poor question of diversity, you nincompoop. The reason that diversity is a weakness in the military is because they lower standards to promote people of certain color or genders or religious affiliations in order to get them up the ranks. That's what makes it a weakness. So if somebody of a specific attribute has to do 100 push-ups and somebody of a different attribute that you want to promote, you make them do 50 push-ups. Now it's like, oh, I got this person here. Oh, diversity. Diversity is our strength. No, it's not. Because you're lowering the standard. Not because diversity itself is weak. Diversity's fine. Because if you leave the standard the same, it's all going to even itself out.
You know, when I was in the service, which perhaps about 8 years ago, if I calculate correctly, we didn't really use the term diversity or DEI. And perhaps that's what has caused the challenges that we're facing now. For those of us in leadership positions, the key was we wanted the administration at that time and at any earlier time or later time to appoint the very best and most capable war fighters.
Correct.
Let's just get down to brass tacks, gunfighters who can fight and prevail in the contested world environment in which we see ourselves today.
Yeah.
And the decision and the discriminator in the appointment to these senior positions should have nothing to do with somebody's race, gender, ethnicity.
Correct.
It's all about whether you could get the bloody job done and do it effectively to take care of your country. That's the key. Eliminate the term diversity.
So when you hear, I mean, there will have been people who in that room who agree and those who don't agree with the overall tenor of what the Secretary of the President was saying. But when they say, he said, in good conscience, be honourable, leave the room and quit. Will that have put a chill of fear into these men and women?
And a quick answer to an appropriate question is yes, heck yes. On the other hand, I just wanted to add, this is not the first administration which has taken aggressive stance toward its senior military leaders. Now, I don't like to dwell in history, But just to touch upon one president who is uniquely admired, that's Abraham Lincoln. During his tenure as commander-in-chief of our armed forces during the Civil
Abraham Lincoln was a disaster.
War, he fired for both political reasons and operational reasons, basically incompetence. He fired 7 different senior officers who were at that time leading the Army of the Republic. He fired again, both because they didn't know what they were doing, they lost battles, they didn't have enthusiasm, the warfighting enthusiasm, or with a gentleman by the name of John Kay, they fired him because of his political views. So this isn't the first time.
I'm grateful to you, General. We'll talk more about this, particularly as it proceeds.
Yep. Laura said, we want the top dogs, plain and simple. Stop overcomplicating it, liberals. I mean, when push comes to shove, are you going to be like, oh, we lost so many lives, but at least we had diversity to make everyone feel warm and fuzzy? No, sit down. Yes, correct. Michelle said he is right, not the first. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of one of the downsides, though, I will say, as being a general. It's like you've been in the military for 25, 30 years, and every 4 years you get this new president who wants to change how everything is done. You want to change it all, and now it's like, okay, well, we were doing DEI, now we're not. So you got to kind of pivot. But it should be all about friggin' war fighting, dude. And I want to be the best military, best war fighters in the world, period, in the universe. God knows what's out there, man. You can get attacked by aliens. I want to be ready for that. Here's MSNBC. Again, I have not watched these clips. I did watch the whole Pete Hegseth speech, but these clips I have not watched.
And Maya, let's talk about this. We know there actually are some serious things are just being discussed in this meeting as well. There's some new Pentagon policy directives about perhaps de-emphasizing troop presence in Europe, making more of a focus on the homeland and the like. But that's the kind of stuff that's going to happen behind closed doors and will come out in the hours and days ahead. What we were there for full display for the cameras was a political speech, and it was an anti-woke, something you'd hear from a Fox News host. I guess that's appropriate, rather than
because Pete Hegseth used to be a Fox News host. Yeah, but and all of a sudden now MSNBC they're saying that's just it discredits him. But what he's saying is absolutely right, and that's why no friggin' liberal lunatic is leading the Secretary of Defense. It is the head of the Department of Defense.
Someone who is the Secretary of Defense, and there was
Secretary of War, sir. It's the Secretary of War now because it's a different mentality. And we're ready for war.
We know the Pentagon has really restricted press access to the building, to events and the like, but one has to assume, just based on reporting ahead of this speech, this won't sit well with a lot of the 2, 3, 4 stars who have dedicated their lives to serving this nation.
That's incorrect. Because these guys were in 40, 50 years ago, where they used to friggin' drive pins into each other's chests when they got their jump wings. Or every time they got promoted, they got they ran the gauntlet and got kneed in the legs and the arms, and they got hazed and they were ripped through the ringer back when we had a tough military. So you're wrong. You never served. You don't know what you're talking about. MSNBC, retard.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see pushback to this. I think a lot about the Vietnam War, which was sort of a moment in an end of discrimination. There was much the Army really focused on making on anti-discrimination, and they ended up really helping the Army in a lot of different ways because people were a lot. It was just a much more egalitarian force, and it ended up being really great for the military.
What are you talking about? Let's rewind that. Like I said, I didn't watch this at all.
On anti-discrimination, and
you talking about Vietnam? Is that what you're talking about?
An end of discrimination. There was much the Army really
She's just making this up.
Focused on making on anti-discrimination, and they ended up really helping the Army in a lot of different ways because people were a lot. It was just a much more egalitarian force, and it ended up being really great for the military.
You mean you're making the argument that, so Vietnam is the first war where troops were not really segregated. So you're saying that really helped the military, and you're using the Vietnam War where we got our asses kicked as support for that. It was really great for the military. Number one, I don't think it was great or not great. I don't think it really had any effect. But that, like, is that what you're saying, that Pete Hegseth is trying to go back to segregation in the military? What are you talking about?
I mean, woke doesn't come from reason. It comes from experience in the military. So
Incorrect.
I do think this is kind of bizarre. And if you think about, like, Winston Churchill, the idea that people have to be thin in order to run the military seems kind of wild.
Yeah. And
Yeah, because friggin' generals who are in charge of war should not set the example for their troops. Yeah, that's a friggin' great idea, you left-wing lunatic psychopath. Jesus, man. What the heck is wrong with these lefties? Ugh. I don't get how anybody could watch MSNBC. I don't get it. Here's a Fox News clip. Let's listen to this.
Well, Trace, I think this is probably the best speech that the military has heard since the days of General Patton. I mean, it's really as simple as that. A fat general can't march, and a fat admiral is going to sink the ship. Look, in all seriousness, standards matter when you're on mission or when you're out at sea. These are matters of life and death in many of these situations. And any time when a standard is not being reached, that means you're using a system that doesn't put merit first, that doesn't put the best person possible in their position, whether that be in a combat position or in a support facility like intelligence or anything else. We want the best people in the best jobs to be able to provide the best security for our nation. That's the entire point of the military. And I got to tell you, the warfighters absolutely loved the Secretary's speech today. Well, Trace, I think this is...
Yeah, the true war dogs, 100%. Like, there's dudes in that audience like, hell yeah. Like, that is the best thing. And J.D. Vance was asked a question. Now, here's the thing about J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is a Marine from, wartime, Iraq, Afghanistan. Now, I think he was in Iraq, but he was not a combat operations. I think he was a journalist, which is fine. But he's a Marine, and all Marines are riflemen. So all Marines are combat arms, and they're going to ask him how what he thought of Pete Hegseth's speech.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Just going back to the sombrero, you said that the president is joking, but Hakeem Jeffrey says that these memes were racist. What's your response to that? And just if I may briefly go off topic, Secretary Hegseth yesterday made an edict about no more beardos in the military. Just wondered what.
Sorry, what did he say?
No more beardos.
Beards.
Oh, sorry, it's my accent. Just wondered your response to that.
I didn't see that particular comment. I thought Pete gave a hell of a speech, and a speech that really is just oriented around returning the American military to the very high standards that it has had for virtually its entire history until Joe Biden came along and decided to lower standards. I think it was bad for our military, and it was bad for our troops. When I was a young United States Marine, I did not have a beard. I am now the vice president, so I get to do what I want to do. But I think Pete's trying
That's why I have a beard, because I was not allowed to have one for so long.
to re-implement high standards, and that's a very good thing. On the sombrero thing, I mean, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
He wants to implement high standards, and that's a good thing. Listen, the Marine Corps has very high standards. Sorry. They do. That's just the Marine Corps. Here is PBS News reporting on the Hegseth speech. Guys, if you like the video so far, hit that like button, share it with a friend. Don't forget to go to ryanfsamuels.com/shop. Check out the merchandise. Let's listen to this PBS report.
Today, speaking to a sea of generals and admirals whose experience was forged by 2 decades of foreign wars, the commander-in-chief said their chief enemy was domestic.
We should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military, National Guard, but military.
The Trump administration has deployed active-duty Marines and National Guard to Los Angeles, as well as guardsmen to Washington, D.C., but they've spent more time strolling than training. And President Trump vows to deploy troops.
Yeah, more job strolling than training. First of all, the National Guard is not really our military.
Troops into Chicago, Memphis, and Portland.
Defending the homeland is the military's first and most important priority. That's what it is. Only in recent decades did politicians somehow come to believe that our job is to police the far reaches of Kenya and Somalia, while America is under invasion from within.
For years, the senior officers in today's room not only led troops in Iraq and Afghanistan and Special Operations Forces troops across more than 80 countries, they've also been trained and educated all their careers to believe the U.S. military should not be deployed against fellow Americans. And the few exceptions have been managed by the National Guard, who outside of D.C. are led by state authorities. But that is not President Trump's vision.
It's a war from within, controlling the physical.
So basically, they're saying so PBS because PBS is dumb. They're trying to talk about posse comitatus. Now, posse comitatus essentially is a law that says you cannot use the United States military against its own citizens, right? The states used to have their own militias. Then we got away with that, and we created the National Guard that can now be federalized, and now the federal government can use the troops against its own citizens, which is what we're seeing in Washington, D.C. Okay? They're trying to say that Donald Trump has a vision where he wants the military to take over cities, and that is, it's happening, but not to the extent that they're saying. Like it's some tyrannical, he's trying to take over the whole friggin' world. They're idiots.
Territory of our border is essential to national security.
And this morning, he warned what would happen to officers who resist.
I'm going to be meeting with generals and with admirals and with leaders, and if I don't like somebody, I'm going to fire them right on the spot.
But if the
Well, he's the president. He can do that.
words I'm speaking today are making your heart sink, then you should do the honorable thing and resign.
Yes.
For 45 minutes before President Trump, Secretary Pete Hegseth told the gathered generals and admirals that he was, in his words, ending the war on warriors.
In many ways, this speech is about fixing decades of decay.
Hegseth today issued 11 new memorandums, many about fitness. Requirements for each combat specialty changed to, quote, the highest male standard only. Physical fitness tests for all service members would be changed to, quote, male standards, and grooming requirements would be enforced.
It's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops.
Yes.
Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look. It is bad, and it's not who we are.
Hegseth also vowed to overhaul equal opportunity, military equal opportunity, and the inspectors general who investigate misconduct.
Correct.
Hegseth has long argued that the Biden...
Oh, look at that. Then they put a picture of a black Marine on there who didn't get where he is because he's black, by the way. In the Marine Corps, they treat everybody like they're black.
The administration was too focused on ensuring military diversity, but critics of today's speech say Hegseth's version of lethality is misdefined.
By changing the standard to the highest male combat arms physical fitness, lethality would go down.
Okay, this is a former Captain Haley Gibbons, a former Army Ranger. Shut up, dude. Shut up. By holding everybody to the highest male standard, it would go, productivity would go down.
Lethality is misdefined.
By changing the standard to the highest male combat arms physical fitness, lethality would go down because talent would decrease.
Haley Gibbons.
How would talent decrease by increasing the standards for physical fitness?
This is a former Army Ranger who met the same requirements as male Rangers and says there should be different requirements for different military occupational specialties known as MOSs.
Having different standards for different MOSs allows for creative minds, intelligent people, specialized skills. One of the main aspects
You're saying intelligent people can't be physically fit?
of lethality is unit cohesion, and that is built on trust, shared hardship, and leadership, not if you can deadlift a 350-pound barbell.
That's not the requirement.
Hegseth has fired the top U.S. general who was black, and the Navy's top.
He fired the top U.S. general who was black. Got to throw that in there. Oh, my God. This is pathetic.
Top admiral who's a woman.
The top admiral is a woman.
And others went too far in embracing, quote, woke policies. But Gibbons says the Army defines leadership differently.
Being a leader is influencing people, giving them
First of all, Army Rangers are a dime a dozen.
purpose, direction, and motivation to accomplish a goal.
I didn't even know they had female Army Rangers, but now, Rangers, you better get your act together.
By not creating space for diverse minds, different backgrounds, different genders, we are narrowing our ability to operate effectively.
You're an idiot. I guarantee you did not meet the friggin' same standards as the men around you. Guarantee it. All right, here is Pete Hegseth talking about the War Department and why the name matters.
Good morning and welcome to the War Department.
Yes.
Because the era of the Department of Defense is over.
Good.
You see, the motto of my first platoon was those who long for peace must prepare for war. This is, of course, not a new idea. This crowd knows that. The origin dates to the 4th century Rome and has been repeated ever since, including by our first commander-in-chief, George Washington.
I hate when they play music because now I can't play that video because I'm going to get a copyright strike if I didn't get one yet already. All right, let's see. This looks like another one where he's talking about the Department of War. Let's see if this one's got music.
Truth. To ensure peace, we must prepare for war. From this moment forward, the only mission of the newly restored Department of War is this: warfighting.
Yes.
Preparing for war and preparing to win. Unrelenting and uncompromising in that pursuit. Not because we want war. No one here wants war.
No.
But it's because we love peace. We love
war a little bit in the military.
Peace for our fellow citizens. They deserve peace, and they rightfully expect us to deliver it. Our number one job, of course, is to be strong so that we can prevent war in the first place. The president talks about it all the time. It's called peace through strength. And as history teaches us, the only people who actually deserve peace are those who are willing to wage war to defend it.
Yes.
That's why pacifism is so naive and dangerous. It ignores human nature and it ignores human history. Either you protect your people and your sovereignty, or you will be subservient to something or someone. It's a truth as old as time. And since waging war is so costly in blood and treasure, we owe our republic a military that will win any war we choose.
You know, there's a quote, I think it's, people sleep peacefully in their beds at night only because rough men stand ready to do violence on their behalf. And that's what the military is. It's men who are ready to do extraordinarily gruesome violence on behalf of their fellow countrymen to protect them from horrible violence that would be done to them if we didn't have these rough men standing ready. But when we take these rough men and we start instituting not rough men but weak men just to fill a standard, when we go to war, it's going to be ugly. War is a very ugly thing, but sometimes it's necessary to defend the United States or to defend the interest of the United States. And sometimes the best defense is an assault, an offense with surprise speed, violence of actions, and overwhelming superior firepower. And I think that's what Pete Hegseth is going for here. Our military is war fighters. They're not peacekeepers. Your police department is peacekeepers. The military is someplace you send to just completely and utterly annihilate our enemy. Now, that's an important distinction. You know, we don't send them to we don't send them to peace summits. We send them when peace summits fail. Now, here's a little hint here that we're seeing. You know, I do have some concerns. I don't have concerns. I think this is all 100% a good thing. But I do feel that maybe something is going on. The peace talks with Russia and Ukraine, they don't seem to be really going well. Trump was very confident they would go well very quickly. Putin is extending his reach with drones into Poland. I think they shot a couple down. We're seeing escalation that maybe NATO is going to have to take some action against Russia. And here is Trump talking to the generals after Pete Hegseth about this.
We were a little bit threatened by Russia recently, and I sent a submarine, nuclear submarine, the most lethal weapon ever made. Number one, you can't detect it. There's no way. We're 25 years ahead of Russia and China in submarines. Russia's actually second in submarines. China's third, but they're coming up. They're coming up. They're way lower in nuclear too, but in 5 years they'll be equal. They're coming up. And you don't have to be that good with nuclear. You could have 1/20th what you have now and still do the damage that would be,
Trump, he rambles, drives me nuts.
Be so horrendous. But I announced that, based on his mention of nuclear, and it was really a stupid person that works for him mentioned the word nuclear, I moved a submarine or two, I won't say about the two, over to the coast of Russia, just to be careful, because we can't let people throw around that word. I call it the N-word. There are two N-words, and you can't use either of them. You can't use either of them.
Like, what are you talking about, Donald? Oh, I love it.
And frankly, if it does get to use, we have more than anybody else. We have better, we have newer, but it's something we don't ever want to even have to think about. But when somebody mentions it, that submarine started immediately thereafter. And it's just lurking, but I'm sure we're not going to have to use it.
So something's going on with Russia. Is this speech by Pete Hegseth kind of us bowing up and saying, dude, we're not going to tolerate your BS. We're not Joe Biden. Our military is ready to annihilate you. If you want to go that route, we'll go that route. Pete Hegseth gives a speech about we're not weak, we're not woke. We want the highest standard. If you don't like it, get out. If you're fat, get out. And then Trump comes in and says we're a little threatened by Russia. So I deployed 2 nuclear submarines over there. So is there something else going on? Perhaps. We really don't know. It's definitely a possibility. And I hope not, because any war with Russia is going to end in a nuclear war. I think it was Einstein that said, I don't know what weapons World War III will be fought with, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. So whatever it is going to just be done and annihilate all of Earth and mankind. But thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Go to ryanfsamuels.com/shop. Check out these shirts. I got some really cool shirts there. I'm going to make a couple more for the Pete Hegseth speech. FAFOs, Gulf of America, Patriot shirts like this. Check it out. Also, check out our blog at ryanfsamuels.com/news. And make sure you tune in Monday through Friday live, 9 p.m. on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, X, all over the place. Listen to the podcast. Gets released right after the show is done. And thank you. God bless you. God bless our troops. God bless the United States of America. We will see you on Monday.
Thanks for tuning in to The Ryan Samuels Show. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.